Welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio, the bicycle industry podcast that brings retailers, vendors, advocates, and thought leaders to the mic for honest discussions about the latest issues facing retailers while taking an in-depth look at the person within the profession.
Registration is officially open, and we want you to join us for the second annual NBDA Retailer Summit, May 22nd and 23rd in Bentonville, Arkansas. Our 2024 program features 2 dynamic days of presentations, panel discussions, and breakout sessions aimed to unite retailers and suppliers in conversation. Tickets include an event gift bag, tailored educational events, networking cocktail event and select meals, early access to the Bentonville Bike Fest, not to mention ample riding time on world-class trails. You won't want to miss it, so don't. Get registered today at nbda.com.
All right, welcome to the Technician Flex. This is our fun edition of Bicycle Retail Radio. It's an ongoing podcast feature focused specifically on service center and mechanics, and it's produced in partnership with NBDA educational partner, Northwest Arkansas Community College Bicycle Assembly and Repair Technician Program Director, Benjamin Glenn. Benjamin, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, that's always a mouthful, isn't it?
I get through it each time. Yeah.
You do. It's wonderful. Yeah.
Happy New Year. We're here. We're going to continue these technician flexes into 2024, every other month, answering your questions on service center operations, continuing education, proactive versus reactive service. How's the college? How is it in Northwest Arkansas today?
Oh, yeah. It's fantastic. We have a snow day, so that's a lot of fun. It doesn't happen. Well, I guess it happened quite a few times last year, but Arkansas and snow just, doesn't mix. It doesn't seem like you should be saying those in the same sentence. But yeah, we get snow days. Winter break is we're pretty much right at the end of winter break. Students start back on the 16th, and we'll work our way into the second semester with our suspension class, wheels, service operations, and e-bikes. So gearing up for that, setting all the curriculum and all that good stuff up in our learning management system. And it's just, it's really nice to turn this corner. Students are going to be doing great. We ended the semester fantastic with the grades, and everyone made it through. So
always fun going into a new year. And yeah, Northwest Arkansas and snow don't sound like they go together. But Northwest Arkansas is an amazing place in our country. It's the mountain biking capital of the world. There's so much happening. And Northwest Arkansas Community College is one of the few colleges that is hosting an opportunity for bicycle mechanics, for students to earn a Bicycle Industry Employers Association accredited certification in bicycle assembly and repair. So this is great. They're bringing so much knowledge and skills to our industry, training bicycle mechanics in wheel repair, assembly, bearing, suspension systems, service department operations, electric bikes, really helping us have quality mechanics and technicians in the field. So Ben, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, we're having a great time, and students, like I said, everything is about them. Definitely student focused all across the board, and excited for them to get out and work in the industry and just see their impact. It's going to be great.
So I love our podcast because it's like, ask Ben anything. And it is. And we get the questions that we ask Ben from listeners, from retailers, from suppliers. So you can ask us anything. Send your questions to me at heather@nbda.com. And yeah, we go through them and we select a few. And each episode we ask Ben for his knowledge and expertise. So Ben, this is episode 5. Are you ready to jump in?
Let's do this. Yeah, I'm excited.
All right, so here we go. The first one is from a retailer in Florida. And this retailer says, chain replacement is a routine task in bicycle maintenance. What guidelines do you recommend for bike shops when advising customers on when to replace their chains? Are there any common misconceptions about chain wear that you frequently encounter, and how do you address them during customer interactions? Well, I love this one. We used to keep the chain checker near the check-in, so I'm really interested to hear your advice on what you recommend for bike shops when advising customers on when to replace their chains.
Yeah, that, keeping that chain checker right there at check-in is great because, before you do a drivetrain adjustment, before you start replacing any part with the drivetrain, always, kind of work from the simplest thing to the most complex. And checking that chain is definitely one of the first things you should do. It's fundamental to making sure that customers got a bike that they want to ride and they can ride and enjoy. So thanks for this question. It's definitely sometimes one of those that's kind of hard to get through with customers. It can be a little bit overwhelming when we're talking about um, any type of preventative maintenance. Although we spent this much money on a bike and now I've got to spend this much money on maintenance. But talking to them and kind of talking about those maintenance expectations, I guess you could say, or just, preventative maintenance service you can do to the bike, just so they can keep riding a bike that they like, the bike functions properly. And remembering throughout any of those complex service conversations, we should definitely be speaking with some respect and only to the extent needed for that customer's understanding. So kind of basically just don't use extreme technical jargon unless that customer does. So, that's one thing that we talk about in our service operations class. And there's a great video out there I show the students from some engineers, and, it's all these crazy complex engineering, terms and just you can't wrap your mind around it. And then the conversation goes, you learned a lot in this program. So now, unless the customer asks for this, no need to start talking about, these very technical terms with the customer. But to approach the question a little bit more here, I like to talk about proactive service with that customer as early as possible in their bike ownership journey. When measuring a chain, let them know what you're going to be doing. Let them know, hey, I'm going to measure your bicycle's chain for wear. I'll also record this for you, so you know when to kind of expect that chain replacement to happen. Things are not getting cheaper anymore. It's kind of taking a little bit of that sting out of the price when it's time to replace those parts is great. They'll appreciate that. Now, as far as the tool goes, there's a ton of different chain wear tools on the market. There's a huge variety. Some are accurate, some not so accurate at measuring what's called true pin to pin wear. And that's really where a chain wears is from the pin to the next pin and so on down the line. And that's where we want to measure is we want to measure and see where that pin to pin wear is. A tool that measures on the same side of the rollers. So roller wear, it's not really going to affect much of that measurements. We're not going to really get a good accurate reading. I like to turn to Shimano's, and this is going to get a little technical here, TL CN40 or the CN41, or I really have enjoyed using Pedro's Chain Checker Plus 2. Those are definitely my go-to as far as chain measurement goes. The Shimano and the Pedro's, they force a center guide. So you have 3 different guides on there, 3 different basically guides. They force that center guide against a roller so that when a measuring guide is held against the chain, it measures on the same side as the load that first initial loaded roller, thus measuring only pin to pin wear and measuring on the same side of those pins as you go down the chain. I've got some notes here, some great resources that I've used to kind of discover these things. A really interesting company, guy that studies, researches a lot of chains and try to get the least amount of friction in his chain is Zero Friction Cycling. Just give it a Google. You can get really into some technical terminology. He looks at everything from what's the most efficient as far as watts go to what has actually the least amount of friction from the chain lubricant, the way the chain's built, all that good stuff. And an oldie here is turning to Sheldon Brown for just explanation on that chain wear. He's got a great article that him and Job Sprint kind of co-authored together. It really walks through and really explains well as far as just chain wear goes, how it happens, some great visual pictures, and then also talking about those chain measurement tools as well. So is there some, I guess, misconceptions? Yeah, I think the misconception is maybe possibly using the wrong chain wear indicator you want to use. Not grabbing 2 or 3 different ones, so always using the same one each time, so you have some consistency with that measurements. And preparing that customer for any possible maintenance that's needed, and that's going to speak to the proactive side of the service.
Lots of great advice there. And yeah, as we navigate this, it's a continual discussion on how we can, be more efficient, be more customer centric, really tune into those customer needs. So I love all of these tips and advice. And yeah, I love this question and really thankful for your time and expertise on that. I want to just link to the notes there in our show notes for our listeners, the Sheldon Brown reference, big fan of his work. And I love how you incorporated that into your response. So thank you.
Yeah, he's fantastic. The information out there is just, you can't really put a price on it. So good job. Happy to have those resources.
All right, let's go to our second question. This is from a retailer friend of ours in our P2 group that has a shop in Connecticut. And the retailer writes, often we get a bike into the shop with a sound. I mean, we've all had a bike that comes in and there's like the customer says, oh, there's this knock when we pedal, a tick. I can't really diagnose the noise, but it just won't go away. Can you figure it out and fix it? And he writes, often this ends up stealing precious moments of my mechanic's time. Are there common things I could suggest my mechanics check right away so we don't go down this rabbit hole? I mean, come on, you're smiling. You get it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, totally. Yeah. Those noises, knocks, clicks, ticks, these are pain and, the mystery, the mystery to what's happening. And it's a huge annoyance to the rider. So yes,
it's the worst. And it does take a lot of our mechanics' valuable time, right? So where should we go with this one?
I'm getting a little PTSD from this, to be honest. When I was working in the shop, one of our regular customers, makes me think about this one particular bike. It was a fantastic bike. Customer was frequent, brought all the bikes in, a super nice guy. And he was ready for a nice premium road bike. So as high end as we could get, he was prepared to pull out all the stops and go super high end, super lightweight. So yeah, of course we're going to do that. And I really wanted to showcase our expertise, and how smart we were and how professional we were. So, went through the whole entire fitting process with him to determine, correct size of frame, stem length, handlebar width, handlebar shape, the works, didn't leave any detail, untouched, just came across and wanted to really do a great job with this customer. So the frame came in, spent my time building it, owner's manuals open, the dealer manuals, all that good stuff to make sure I was doing this correctly and following everything. Installed all the components, checking everything at least twice. And I kid you not, within a week, this bike was back in for service with this crazy loud knocking noise from the bottom bracket. Yeah, I was devastated, definitely heartbroken. I thought, surely I've not, missed a step. What did I do? What has happened here? And so, kind of to cut to the chase here, long story short, after numerous attempts at reinstallation of that bottom bracket, of the crank, of the pedals, using different types of lubricants, going to a higher quality lubricant, calling local bike shop across town and say, hey, do you have this particular lubricant? I'd like to try it out. Just really grasping for straws. One point I even swapped out for a new bottom bracket. Actually, in the end, it was actually on the manufacturer's side. Yeah, so the frame bottom bracket, the shell bore diameter was just outside of allowable tolerances, allowing that bottom bracket unit to kind of flex just enough to create some noise. So everything we were doing was absolutely trying to solve the problem, but those tolerances, we can't control that as a bike shop.
Now you're giving me some PSTD, because I had a customer do this. We were built up this beautiful gravel bike and same thing. And you're right, like the circumference of like the bottom bracket opening or something wasn't the same as the bottom bracket, and that was actually what it was. It was in the frame manufacturing. Yeah,
just outside of those tolerances. What are we going to do? I mean, there's some tricks and tips to get around it, but that's always going to come back. That's nothing we can change. So it's kind of out of our control. but let's kind of circle back here a little bit to answer the question, I guess. So
Yeah, you and I are just like off on a tangent over here.
we totally can do that. Yeah, yeah. So bicycles, we all know, like lubrication, they like to be aligned, right? Most noises can be cured typically with a good cleaning and proper fastener torque, appropriate service treatments like some type of thread locker, anti-seize compounds, friction paste, or even just your generic Park Tool Polylube 1000. Things like that can go a long way in keeping these noises from happening or coming around. So cleaning, proper torque, and any type of service treatment that's needed, recommended by the manufacturer, whatever that looks like. And that alignment, making sure that things are lined up, absolutely checking those frame tolerances if needed. But, to really address this, what can we do straight up front? I would say, part of that is going to be to wash the bike properly, make sure, you're addressing any concerns. Where are you riding? What are you doing, customer? With this bike, you have any noises that are coming around? When does it happen? Is it happening when you're seated? Is it happening when you're standing on the pedals? Is it happening in a certain gear? So really kind of being a detective a little bit, I guess, would be, kind of my first piece of advice. So, is it a squeaking noise while you're pedaling? This can be caused by a lot of different things that are happening within that bike. We can be looking at dirt, debris buildup. We could be looking at dried up lubrications. We could be looking at broken parts even. So there's several things that might be causing this. Can we check every single thing in a timely manner? I don't think so. I think that's almost impossible. So start with the most obvious and then work your way to that, more involved service. So most obvious, least invasive service to the more complex service of, maybe it is time to overhaul the bottom bracket, replace the bottom bracket. Maybe I do have something a little bit more in depth that, I need to spend time on. And that's when you can communicate with the customer. Hey, I found the problem. It's going to take a little bit more time. So here's our new estimate. Are we approving that? What's that look like? So kind of back to what we already stated, it's customer relationship, building up that rapport and that communication. But working from the, kind of the outside in is probably the best way to go.
There's lots there, and I think your answer is fantastic. And I think the biggest thing that I would say is make sure your staff knows what your policy and procedure is too, right? Because we want everyone on the same page. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good question. Good question. It took us down a little bit of a roller coaster, but we're back.
Yeah, I think
all right. So I really like this next one too. All these questions are good this episode. So I'm in the Northeast. So this retailer actually is in the Northeast as well. They write, winter is here, plows are out, and we know salt eats things. How does salt impact bikes, components, and carbon? And should we as a retailer sell a salt removal bike wash package? I don't even know there is something, but should we sell something like that? And anything special to consider when it comes to removing or protecting the bike from the elements?
Oh, yeah, this is absolutely a horrible thing to happen to a bicycle, components, to your car, to whatever. That salt does eat whatever. It's extremely corrosive. Is there a way around this? Outside of moving somewhere else? I don't think so, right? And people deal with this year round. Our campus, our other campus is in Minneapolis College. And this, one thing that I've talked with Casey, the director up there, about is, how do you, I know you ride year round. How do you overcome all the salts? And, she said, she basically has just talked me through, removing that salt as quick as possible, washing that away, getting rid of that is absolutely kind of the best way to decrease the damage. So, if there is some type of salt removal package you can add on to your service, I think that's fantastic. I'd really like to know a little bit more about that and what your thoughts, what this dealer's thoughts are, this retailer's thoughts. Right. Living here in the South, the only salt I really see and have dealt with is, from human sweat. This is kind of year round, especially for folks that are riding inside, but even when they're not, it's hot here. A lot of humidity, people can pour sweat all over their bikes. This happens to me. Washing that away as soon as possible decreases those chances for corrosion to set in on any type of metal component like aluminum and steel. Carbon, Carbon itself is not typically affected, but the areas where the carbon and the metal meet can absolutely be affected. So those bonded surfaces, let's say we got an aluminum dropout and then our tube is carbon, that area where those two meet, what happens is the actual aluminum is the part that's corroding over time. So it's not the carbon itself. The aluminum corrodes, causes some delamination, causes the resin to break down those bonding agents in the carbon. And then that's when we can end up with some failure there. Titanium, typically not really a concern outside of those same areas where titanium and another metal meet. So titanium bottom bracket shell meets an aluminum or steel bottom bracket unit. You're going to have some problems there eventually over time. So getting those spikes cleaned up, something that absolutely I would investigate a little bit more and see if there is a package you can add on and say, hey, we got this great package. We're running a deal every winter. Come in and we'll get you taken care of. Make sure that your bike's going to be great for the springtime when it's, there's not so much salt on the ground.
Yeah,
one thing to think about is time. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, when you said body sweat, all I can think about is indoor trainers and how bad that is.
Yes. Yeah. Indoor training wreak havoc on bicycles and components. Absolutely educate customers to these issues. Maybe even offer like some type of trainer wash. So yeah, you're riding your bike inside. It's not getting any road grime on it, but it's getting everything you pour out of your body on there. And that stuff can be absolutely the most corrosive. It gets, you can, just Google that and you can find some components that are just, falling apart, have this white stuff all over them. And that's
or don't Google that, listeners, don't.
Another part to think about is tires, wheels, pedals, all those other parts of the bike, right? It's not just always about the frame. So reserve time in that winter package. So if you got a winter service package to inspect a bike that's been exposed to any salty conditions, the whole bike, tires, wheels, pedals, the whole thing, everything that's going to be moving is going to have probably some type of buildup on there. So early detection is the key when it comes to, dealing with corrosion from salt.
That's a great answer. And I'm so glad that you brought in like the salt that happens when we ride indoors too. And I think there is an opportunity somehow for retailers to at least educate customers, as you're saying, educate riders, and then play a role in helping make sure those bikes and components stay clean and last long. All right, one more question. This is our final question for today. And this is from a retailer asking about kids maintenance classes. The retailer hopes to host a youth maintenance class and wants to know what general topics they should include for basic maintenance skills and any other tips you might have to make it fun. This is so cool, right?
Yeah, this is awesome. So cool. Super cool. This is really good work. Whoever's doing this, fantastic. Good job, retailer, because, you can never be, people can never be too young to learn about bikes and especially about maintenance. Kids love using tools. They love exploring. They love things, that adults are doing. I've got a picture of my oldest son. He's around the age of 4. He's got his Strider bike. I taught him how to use a few basic tools. Next thing I know, he's taking the bike apart. So it's
hold on.
yeah, he's taking things apart. I don't know if this is going to be a positive thing eventually, but he's definitely likes to work with his hands. He likes exploring. He likes using the same things I am. So give him those opportunities. And these maintenance classes for the kids can be a lot more than that standard, air, brakes, chain approach. So it doesn't have to be just about that. This reminds me of something I was invited to do a few summers ago. There's a local preschool, a Montessori school that, gave me a call and said, hey, would you be interested in coming and talking to our preschoolers about bikes and working on bikes? Yeah, I was like, whoa, this sounds amazing, but how do I teach a preschooler?
Right? Because these are young kids, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. I really had to think about, what would bring some excitement to hold their attention. Where's the value? What would make sense? So I kind of pulled out all the stops really a little bit. I brought a whole pile of tools in, some different components for them to explore. Really took kind of more of a tinkering approach to it. Just kind of let them touch things and get their hands on the tools. I also printed out a lot of different pictures of various bikes, everything from the hobby horse all the way to hand cycles to modern full suspension rigs. We had, I don't know, I probably had like 30 or 40 printouts basically, and just left them there for the teacher to use. But we talked briefly about kind of about the bikes, how funny some of them look. Imagine us riding. I even had like a bike that had like a cargo on the front of it that was set up as like an ice cream delivery. So we talked about, hey, how cool would it be to have a bike that you could sell ice cream out of? Just kind of talked about that.
Just anything to get that fun going, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just kind of, let them know that bikes are fun. Working on bikes is absolutely a blast. We explored city maps. We looked at different locations there, talked about how we can get around the city. Where would we ride? What are some safe roads? We even went on a pretend bike ride using some old handlebars, kind of this crazy impromptu story I made up. It was nuts. So the kids just had a loose handlebar, and we just walked around the outside of the school and kind of took them out, and we just pretended like we were riding bikes. This actually turned out to be a really fantastic way to teach them hand signals, to looking both ways at intersections, kind of the safest place for kids to ride, things like that. Just so some ridership, I guess, skills.
I love that. I love that. And imagine as a retailer, you're hosting, like, you doing a mechanics class or doing anything like what you're suggesting. It really gets kids pumped up, and then the families are there, right?
Yep, absolutely. Can be a lot of fun taking that STEM approach, taking a little bit more of a holistic approach. Simple things like a tube inflation race can be a lot of fun. Just having a tube laying out, and teaching them how to use a floor pump, the different valves on there, and just let that tube get super big. It could be really fun. And we all know that tubes make a lot of noise when they pop, so kind of controlling that a little bit. But I really like this idea of a kids maintenance clinic. I would love to have elementary schools around the U.S. teaching maintenance classes. That would be amazing. Could you imagine the level of technicians we'd have coming out of there? It would be phenomenal.
I know. I knew you were going to like that question. When I saw that question come in, I was like, this is totally going to be one that Ben enjoys.
Yeah.
Awesome. Have you been riding? Have you been getting out? Like, are you?
I have, yeah. Actually, I've been doing a little bit more running than riding. So this has been fantastic. I haven't really been a runner much in my life, so kind of got into that and really enjoyed it. Actually went on 2 longer runs this week, and got out on the bike on Wednesday. It was a beautiful day. Went out to Hobbs State Park, which is kind of northeast of where I am in Fayetteville, and beautiful. Did a 15-mile mountain bike ride, and it's just fantastic weather. So, and now we got snow today. So
I know.
Yeah.
Global warming, right? It's awesome. I don't know. Not really.
Yeah.
It's great to have you on the podcast. I love, for our listeners who are driving, you can always tune into our YouTube channel. We can see the facility behind Ben here, and you can see our awesome faces, and just get in touch with us a little bit more. Any questions, send them over, heather@nbda.com. And we'll be back in 2 months, about 60 days.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Excited.
Ben.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks for listening, everyone, and hope your new year is off to a great start.
Excellent. Talk to you later. Bye now.
Thank you for listening to Bicycle Retail Radio. This podcast is designed specifically for the bicycle industry, dedicated to strengthening our retailers and cycling community. If it is your first episode, we urge you to take the time and listen to our past episodes.
The NBDA values the importance of deep interpersonal connections, and our Retailer Summit is designed to be a catalyst for just that. Attending the Retailer Summit in May ensures you meet the right people who know the bicycle industry, respect your business, and want to help you grow, both personally and professionally. It's an easy way to take your business to the next level through networking, engaging with panelists and speakers, problem solving with your fellow attendees, followed by ample riding time on world-class trails. Go to nbda.com/retailer summit for more information and to get your tickets today.